Hi, today we're going to be learning how to calculate the surface area and volume of cylinders. Before we do that, let's first start with a review of how to calculate the area and circumference of a circle. So we're going to start off with area. So the area formula for a circle is pi r squared. Remember, area represents the space inside of a shape. Circumference is represented by 2 pi r. The circumference of a circle represents the outside perimeter or length around a circle. For the purposes of today's lesson, we're just going to be using the approximation for pi, which is around 3.14. Now the r in each of these formulas represents the radius. The radius of a circle is the distance from the center to a point on the outside of the circle. In this case, our radius is equal to 3. So let's calculate our area of the circle. So we're going to do pi times r, which is 3 squared. And if I want to simplify this, remember pi we're going to be using approximately 3.14, and then multiplying that by 3 squared is 9. 3.14 times 9 gets me a total of 28.26, and that's the area of the circle. The circumference of the circle, we're going to start with 2 times pi times the radius 3. To simplify this, remember pi we're going to be using 3.14, and we're going to be multiplying that by 2 times 3 gets us 6. 3.14 times 6 is a total of 18.84, and that's how you find the circumference of the circle. Alright, let's go ahead and calculate the surface area and volume of this cylinder. So we're going to start off with surface area. So for the surface area, I want to label each of my sides in this cylinder. So I noticed that I have a top side, and that means I also have this bottom side here. So let's start with our top and our bottom. The last side that we have in our cylinder is actually this part in the middle that wraps all the way around. So we're just going to call this the side. So in total, we have 3 sides that we need to calculate the area for. Let's start with the top and the bottom. So notice that the top and the bottom are both going to be circles, and we know the area of a circle is represented by pi times r squared. Now our r in this case is going to be 5. So 5 squared. Multiplying all of this gets me a total of 78.5. If the top is 78.5, the bottom is going to be the exact same thing. All right, now let's talk about this side section in the middle. So I'm going to try my best to draw out for you, but imagine that this is like a food can, and you're unwrapping the label around the outside. Watch what happens. So notice that it makes this rectangle shape, where the height of the rectangle is the same as the height of the cylinder, 8. So here's our height, but what is the base of this rectangle? Well, notice that here along our edge is the base, right? And if we take a look around here, this is where it wraps around the outside of the circle. And what do we call the length around the outside of the circle? Well, that's going to be our circumference. So the base of this rectangle is actually the circumference of the circle. We know that the area of a rectangle is base times height. So that's what we can use to find the side. So I'm going to start with the base circumference. We know circumference is 2 times pi times r, which in this case is 5. And then I'm going to multiply it by the height. The height in this case is 8. Multiplying all of these numbers together gets me a total of 251.2. So let's add each of these 3 sides together. So we're going to add 78.5 plus another 78.5 plus 251.2. This gets me a total of 408.2. And we don't have any units, so we're just going to say UN squared. And this is our final surface area. Now let's kind of break down what we did. So on our cylinder, we can label 2 things that we've used. 5 is going to be the radius of this circle here, and then 8 we can label as the height of the cylinder. For both the top and the bottom, we used the area of a circle formula, pi r squared, but we did that 2 times. So to put this into an equation, we can say that we did 2 times area of a circle, pi r squared. Then we added that to all of this over here. So essentially what we did is we took the circumference of a circle, which was 2 pi r, and then we multiplied that by the height of the cylinder. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that down here. So we have 2 pi r times the height. And we can consolidate all of this into 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r times height. And this is the formula for surface area of a cylinder. Okay, now let's do volume. So for the volume, just like we had done for the prisms, we can take one of the areas of the bases, which in this case is going to be the circular base. That's going to be either the top or the bottom, which is 78.5. So this is the area of one of the bases. And then I multiply it by however many bases or layers I have, which in this case is 8. So again, this is the number of layers that we have of the circle. 78.5 times 8 gets me a total of 628 units cubed. And that's my volume. So for volume, what we've done is we've taken the area of the base. Remember, we use this capital B to represent that. And then we multiplied it by the height of the cylinder. But what was the area of our base? Well, our base is a circle. So I essentially can replace this capital B with the area of a circle, pi r squared. And then we've multiplied that by the height. So together, this gets me pi r squared h. And that's the formula for volume of a cylinder. All right, now let's go ahead and try to solve for the surface area and volume of this cylinder. So notice that this cylinder is actually tilted over on its side. You can definitely leave it alone like this, or I'm just going to go ahead and redraw it down here to show you what it looks like upright. All right, so here's my cylinder. Let's go ahead and just label these dimensions. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and start off with surface area. So for the surface area, I noticed that I have a top and a bottom. So we're going to start there, top, bottom. I also noticed that I have the side that wraps around like a rectangle. So this is my side. So let's go ahead and start with the top and the bottom, which are both circles. So I know that because it's a circle, I'm going to use pi r squared. Now in this case, my r is not 6. Because notice that this dimension goes from one end to the other end of the circle. Remember, the radius only goes from the center to the end, which means that my radius is only half of this. So half of 6 is going to get me 3. So that means my r is 3. So 3 squared. Multiplying all of this gets me 28.26. If the top is 28.26, that means the bottom is as well. Okay, now let's move on to the side. So remember, the side we learned we could use the circumference times the height. We know that circumference is 2 times pi times r, which is 3. And then the height is going to be 10. Multiplying all of this gets me a total of 188.4. Now let's add all three sides together for a total of 244.94. And my units are centimeters squared. And this is my surface area. Now let's try applying the surface area formula. So it starts with 2 pi r squared. Remember, our r in this problem was half of 6, which is going to be 3. So we're going to do 2 times pi times r squared, which is 3 squared. We're going to add that to 2 pi r h. Let's label our h. Here's our h. So that means this part is going to say 2 times pi times r, which is 3, times our h, which is 10. Let's simplify all of this. So if I multiply all of these together, that gets me 56.52. And then multiplying all of these gets me 188.4. Adding these two is going to get me 244.94. And that's centimeters squared. And that's my surface area. All right, let's move on to volume. So remember, for the volume, we can take the circular base, which is either the top or the bottom. So in this case, 28.26. And then we're going to multiply it by however many layers there are. So in this case, it's going to be a height of 10. So these are my layers. If I multiply this, this gets me a total volume of 282.6, and that's centimeters cubed. And this is my volume. And if we want to use the formula, I can take pi, multiply it by r squared, which is 3 squared, multiply it by the height, which is 10, and all of this together gets me 282.6 centimeters cubed as well. And that's how you solve for the surface area and volume of a cylinder. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment with any questions or topics you'd like to see next. Bye!